Somewhere between deciding to sell and actually listing, most sellers become one of three types. Most never ask themselves which one they actually are. What kind of seller are you? Not a personality test, because the answer shapes everything: how you respond to early offers, how you read the market feedback, and whether the outcome you're hoping for is actually the one you're set up to get. There are three types of sellers heading into a listing, and most sellers going in believe they're the third one. I'm Justin Sinkowski with Royal LePage Prime Real Estate, working with sellers across Winnipeg and the Interlakes. This video walks through which of the three seller types you might be before you list your home. Starting with the first type, the seller who doesn't really have a reason to move. They have a number, they're curious whether the market will give it to them. They're not in a rush. If the right price comes along, great. And if not, we'll stay. Nothing wrong with that feeling, but it's a little different than actually selling your home. Here's what tends to happen. The home goes on the market at a number that feels right to the seller. First 60 days come and go without an offer, and the seller isn't really surprised. They were still keeping their options open when they listed. And then the listing quietly expires. The market, meanwhile, has logged a data point. This home sat. The next time it comes on the market, it carries a history. Sellers don't always recognize it. It can feel more like a strategy than testing the waters. But the distinction matters. A testing strategy and a selling strategy behave very differently once a home is actually on the market. Type 2. The conditional seller has a real reason to move. They want to sell, but their price is attached to something the market doesn't know about. Valuation number from years back that hasn't been updated, what they need to get for their next purchase, or a number they told their family members before listing. None of those are unreasonable things to think about, but none of them are what buyers determine value. Buyers compare a home to what else is available in that price range. The market only knows comparable homes have sold for, and what buyers in that range expect to get. The home gets listed, the pricing window opens, the most motivated buyers, the ones that have been watching, ready to act, come and see it, compare it to everything else that's available, and move on. Not because the home is wrong, because the number doesn't match what they're seeing elsewhere. A small adjustment gets made, buyers look again, and the pattern continues. Every week that passes shifts leverage further towards the buyers. The best offers tend to come in early when a home is fresh. Buyers feel some urgency. By the time a conditional seller is ready to price where buyers are, that moment has usually already passed. This is usually the most common type sellers turn out to be, and the hardest to recognize, because the condition always feels like a reasonable caution rather than an obstacle. Now, the last type is the motivated seller has a reason to move: a new job, a growing family, a change in circumstances, and is willing to engage with what the market is actually saying. That doesn't mean taking any offer, it doesn't mean being a pushover. It means that when the market gives information, it gets used. When early activity points in a direction, it gets listened to. When an offer comes in that reflects buyer demand, a decision gets made. Motivated sellers tend to get the best outcomes, not because the market is kinder to them. The market is the same for everyone. It's because they're positioned to capture that early pricing window opportunity, making decisions based on what's true rather than what they hoped would be true. Buyers today are watching before a home even lists. They have alerts set, they know the comparables, and when a home shows up at a price that makes sense, motivated buyers move. And when it doesn't make sense, they move on, silently, without ever saying they were there. Motivated sellers capture the pricing window. The other two usually don't. If that sounds like you, there's a resource in the description that breaks down exactly what happens the first few weeks after you list, so you're ready to use that window instead of losing it. Here's a pattern that shows up almost every time. Nearly every seller starting this conversation describes themselves as motivated and realistic. They've done their research, they understand the market, and they just want it done. When the conversation goes deeper and what's actually being asked for gets clear, often it's a number that's not quite connected to what comparable homes have recently sold for, or a timeline that works if the market cooperates exactly, or a condition that hasn't been said out loud yet, something that would need to be true before seriously consider moving. None of that is unusual. Selling a home is emotional. It's tied to a story, to what happens next, a financial picture. One of the most useful things before listing is figuring out which type actually applies, not to judge the answer, but because the strategy looks completely different depending on where things actually start. There's one question that tends to cut through most of the uncertainty. What would happen if the home didn't get an offer in the first 21 days? If the real answer is adjust and keep going, that's a motivated seller. If it's wait and see, that's probably closer to testing or a conditional seller. Not a problem on its own, but it should shape pricing strategy and expectations going in, and not show up as a surprise 60 days later. Knowing which type of seller you are before you list doesn't guarantee anything. It means walking in with a strategy that actually fits your situation, instead of finding out the mismatch 60 or 90 or 100 days later. If you're thinking of selling in the Winnipeg or Interlake area, there's links in the description below. You can book a time, you can grab a pricing and positioning guide, some seller's guides, and if this was useful, there's another video right here you'll probably want to watch next. New videos like this one come up every week.